Microfocus, creators of visual programming tools for software development, is pleased to provide major funding for the Computer Chronicles, the story of this continuing evolution.
Welcome to the Computer Chronicles. I'm Stewart Cheifet, and this is Herb Lechner sitting in this week for Gary Kildall. Herb, what I'm working on right now is a business applications program called Lotus 123. It's one of the more popular business application packages right now. The 123 stands for the three basic functions which are more or less integrated in here: database management, spreadsheet analysis, and graphics. What I have up right now is the spreadsheet analysis part of the program. I just transferred a file out of my database manager, put it into the spreadsheet analysis, just sorted it out to list these hypothetical offices of our hypothetical business here. And what I can do now, if I want to see a graphic representation of these particular figures, which are quarterly sales figures by office, I can just, with one or two keystrokes, turn that into a pretty impressive demonstration. Our subject today is business applications, Herb, and the first thing I wanted to ask to get going is lots of businesses are making that transition into the use of computers to solve business problems. In some cases, it seems to work out very well. Frankly, in other cases, people aren't so happy with this process. What makes the difference between succeeding and failing in using a computer in your business?
Well, Stewart, in 1983, Time elected a Computer Man of the Year, and yet I haven't seen any boards of directors putting computers in as presidents of companies. And I really think that the difference between success and failure in the use of computers, as in any business tool, lies in the hands and the skill of the person using it, their ability to select, to use, apply this tool to accomplish their business needs.
Okay, we're going to be meeting an executive from Computerland. We'll meet a computer expert from Stanford University, and we'll hear firsthand what IBM is doing to help solve the business problems that companies have. First, let's go out inside and see how computers are being used now in business. Integrating computers into the workplace evolved from the basic need and curse of almost every office: producing, manipulating, and storing written information. Like the original number-crunching computers used in science and mathematics, business automation systems are paper crunchers and time crunchers, squeezing ledgers and files onto disks and opening flexible communication lines of enormous capacity. There is no shortage of predictions about what the impact of automation will be on traditional workplaces, but one trend is certain: offices are being redesigned to accommodate a new level of information gathering and distribution. In glossy magazines that promise paper-free offices, personal computer terminals are ubiquitous. Just as business software becomes more integrated, hardware is becoming a more integral part of desks, counters, and even briefcases, absorbing more and more of the traditional desktop tools. In some of the latest designs, communication and data manipulation are combined into one small module, bringing together telephone, word processors, spreadsheets, files, and electronic mail. Digital voice storage is incorporated in an effort to make the system more executive and clerical friendly.
Kevin, I'll be sending you the one-pager advertising the system.
Computers are suited for more than just front office use, but the computerized desk is an example of automation applied to streamline the most time-consuming tasks. Paperwork and phone calls are estimated to make up as much as 75% of office activity. Computerland is the biggest computer retail chain in the country with about 600 stores now, and we have the Vice President for Products, Chuck Kinch, from Computerland with us. And next to Chuck is Stewart Regis, Assistant Chairman of the Computer Science Division at Stanford, and Stewart is an expert in office automation systems. Herb?
Chuck, why don't you start us off today by telling us what are the popular business applications?
Well, the tendency is more towards horizontal type packages more than vertical, with the emphasis being at the moment on integrated packages like SuperCalc 3 or Lotus 123 that involve some portion of a number of types of packages like word processing, decision support, and database.
Is it the integration that seems to be the popular thing, or the packages themselves?
The integration seems to be the popular thing. That's supported by the fact that there's more than one very popular package.
And tell us exactly what you mean when you talk about horizontal emphasis.
Okay. A horizontal package is a package that could be used by a wide variety of business people. For example, word processing is what we would consider to be a horizontal application. It could be used by a doctor, a lawyer, a business person, a bakery owner could use word processing, whereas architectural design assistance is a very vertical package. It could only be sold to and used by architects.
Right. The people that you're dealing mostly with, are they large computer users or small computer users? Who do you see when they come for packages?
Our two biggest customers are the Fortune 1000 corporations and small business.
I see.
Stewart, is it fair to say that that any business is a subject for computerization, or are there certain kinds of businesses, certain kinds of companies that are really better off doing business the old-fashioned way and not going into computers?
Well, I think people have gotten a little bit too much into the computer bandwagon. I mean, nowadays, if something's wrong, it seems to be buy computers. That's the solution. I think that in the next 5 to 10 years, though, virtually every business will want to incorporate computers in some way into their business. I think we're seeing the computer as the communications tool of the future. It would be like having a business without phones. I think that it's going to be integral to every business.
Well, it is pervasive, and many people are delighted with the computer applications, but some are not. What makes the difference between a happy customer and one who isn't?
Chuck, maybe that's your area.
Is that one for me?
That's a tough one.
Okay. One thing that we found is true is that if the customer is poorly organized to begin with and the systems just generally aren't working at all, the computer isn't going to help. So we ask our customers to sort of do some preparation and get their systems in order before they automate. The computer is not necessarily the answer, but part of it.
What happens when a customer, let's try to go through a scenario, a customer walks into, say, a Computerland store, and he's running a small business, and he's got all these problems. How do you mesh the variety of solutions which are on the shelf and the problems this particular guy has?
Well, a lot of what some people would call the sales cycle really constitutes information gathering on the part of the salesperson, and then a certain amount of analysis, and then a lot of education back to the customer. And ultimately, we try to let the customer make the final decision after they've been educated to some degree with a little guidance by the salesperson.
What kind of an educational program would you map out for a customer? Either of you, I think.
Well, I see it even as a user of computers rather than someone who sells them. I have an administrative post in the university. I'm in charge of the training program, for example, for our secretaries. It's very interesting to see that we have to screen people from the very beginning. When they first come in for an interview, we have to talk to them about computers, because there are a lot of people out there who are very afraid of them. I think that's also one of the major challenges of office automation, is getting people who feel comfortable even starting with the machines. There are a lot of people who have genuine fears of it. Mm-hmm. Even managers, I might say especially managers, often have that kind of fear.
Do you see that also in your stores, Chuck?
Oh, absolutely. That's why our current slogan is "Make friends with the future." We like to portray our stores as being friendly places. A good place to start, we'd like to think, is a Computerland store, where somebody might give you some recommended reading, or just have a general discussion and talk about the principles behind microcomputers.
Chuck, could we get specific and maybe list the various kinds of business applications we're really talking about? What's the variety of areas in which you can use computer software now?
Well, of course, we've discussed a little bit about the integrated packages, which make up a number of types of packages together. To split that out, the more popular ones are word processing, decision support, or spreadsheet, it's sometimes called, database applications. We're seeing some increased popularity in word processing and in graphics programs also.
Particularly graphics programs that will display information that you have in your database, for example.
Yes.
One of the things that we find in our department, well, and also at the university as a whole, one of the worst things that happens is duplication of effort. You have somebody who's working on a Wang word processor who writes a letter. This memo goes over to somebody else, and that person's secretary types it into an IBM PC. Some discussion goes back the other way. Some figures are generated. It's given to the person who's the graphics wizard who can make pie charts, etc. It's much easier if you do have an integrated package where these things are easy.
You know, I'm frankly surprised, though, because in the small business environment, in the large business environment, I see where people would want the decision support type tools, of a fairly horizontal and general nature. But do all the small businesses now have their chart of accounts and general ledger stream programs and payroll and tax programs? Is that why you're not seeing still a high level of interest in vertical applications of that type?
The general business type package is probably the next most popular line right behind the horizontal packages
Financially oriented business?
Yes. We sort of look at it as a very narrow horizontal package. Most people can use general accounting. However, it is rather vertical in its expertise, and it requires some accounting expertise also.
I see.
Go ahead.
An interesting application that you didn't mention was electronic mail. And I can see that for a small business that wouldn't be as interesting. I was just curious how sales go in terms of any kind of electronic mail packages.
We see a significant increase in communications. I listed communications as one of the up-and-coming horizontal packages. It's not specifically electronic mail, but it certainly is part of communications packages. Packages like PC Talk and Crosstalk are starting to hit the bestseller charts for us.
Okay, there's not much doubt about who is the leader in business applications right now. That's IBM. And in just a moment, we're going to have a rare opportunity to talk with an IBM representative and one of their customers to see how they go about solving business applications with computers. And that's coming up in just a moment. Joining us now is Bill Blackmer. Bill is the manager for productivity systems at Levi Strauss here in San Francisco. And next to Bill is Dan Carroll. Dan is a regional marketing representative with IBM and a specialist in office systems. Now, Bill, I want to start with you. Levi is a large corporation. How do you go through the process of recognizing that you have a problem and then figuring out how you're going to use a computer to solve that problem?
We had a problem where we recognized that office systems, or the office environment, the headquarters type environment at Levi Strauss, was probably the last area where we have thrown computers, where we have thrown data processing, where we have thrown technology in there in an effort to make people more productive. We've obviously done it in our warehouse environment, time and motion studies, and also in our distribution center environment. That combined with the fact that our corporation and even the marketing environment that we work in requires us to make more efficient use of our time and to get information to our senior executives more quickly, that we had to look at office systems as something that needed some serious study. So that's how we basically got involved in office systems in the early days.
Are there some basic criteria you established up front as to what this system had to do?
Yeah, we kind of looked at it as a three-tiered approach. There was one thing that Levi's has a little saying that says that Levi's is people. Office systems, office automation is a scary term to a lot of people, so it became very important to put these people at ease and to make them own the process. So office automation, we involved the people that were involved in office automation in the early stages, which were largely word processing, secretaries in the decision-making process. We wanted them to feel comfortable with what they were getting, we wanted them to know why, and we kind of wanted them to own the decision because they are the basis and the backbone of our decision. So people was important to us. The second thing was integration. We needed an environment where our secretaries and our middle managers in Dallas could talk to New York, could talk to London, whatever our cases, or whatever the case might be that you'd want to get into. So we needed an integrated system that could work off our communications network and off our mainframe. The third area that was important was something we call planning. Office automation and systems tends to start off with the idea that the secretary is the resource. Well, it does not take a person very long to realize that you have to deal with middle managers, that you have to even deal with senior executives to get information flow out of your corporate databases to those environments to make decisions. So we call it people, we call it integration, and we call it planning. But people is important.
Dan, how does IBM go about supporting a customer who, like Levi's, recognizes they have a problem and want to do something about it?
Well, once we have the chance to sit down with a customer like Bill, we try to pursue two directions at the same time. First, we try to take advantage of the host databases and networks that may be installed at that customer. And then secondly, because each customer at the end user level in the office tends to be different, we try to understand the proportions of 6 types of workers that are typically found in a white-collar workforce in our customers. Those types are the manager or the business professional, the data processing professional, the engineering or scientific professional, an office or text worker, a commercial worker, somebody who might be involved with a cash register or other information gathering equipment, and finally the production worker, the folks that we all know and love in the factory, who may be operating machines which can collect information for the database.
Okay, Bill, we have up on the computer here something called Profs, which you've just installed at Levi from IBM. Tell us what it is and give us a demonstration.
PROF stands for Professional Office System. What it is a beginning of an office systems plan, and this is basically a small part of it, which allows you to schedule appointments, set up the beginnings of electronic mail, just a little personal communications between your people where you don't spend a lot of time in telephone tag or writing messages and things, to take the power of the computer and make it do a little bit more.
Okay, show us, for example, how using Profs you would schedule a meeting between yourself and somebody else at your company.
Okay, real quickly, obviously what we have up here on the screen is on the left side is an identification for a specific key called PF1 through 5 here and what it does. This is a menu specifically customized to Levi's. We know our environment best, and that was the nice thing about the package is we could get as specific for our environment as we want to. So we want to schedule an appointment here. So we hit PF1, which says I want you to go out there and pull in that part of the system that calls for scheduling appointments. Here it comes back. I happen to be the one logged on, so it's looking for me. It's telling me today. And like I said, and this gives us a series of options to deal with scheduling. So you want to schedule a meeting. So let's hit what it calls there, which is the PF7 key. And once again, now it's going out here and loading this thing in. Just as an example, let's schedule a meeting for Monday, sometime on Monday, for, what would you like, 2 hours?
2 hours? Let's
2 hours?
2 hour block.
Let's get me involved in this meeting this time.
So we'll try to set up a meeting between you and somebody else at Levi.
Right. A lady that needs no introduction at Levi's.
And what's happening now?
All right, what it's now doing is it's going out there and looking in my schedule and Bonnie's schedule for Monday and finding out if there's an open 2-hour period. So, you know, if we have 800 schedules out there, it's looking for our 2 specific ones and coming back with a note.
And what does it tell you?
Well, this note is telling us that it could not find a meeting time to match these requirements on this day for Bonnie and I.
Okay, so you didn't have a 2-hour block, or she didn't have a 2-hour block free?
That's correct. In this case, we know that I don't have a 2-hour block free.
Okay, now let's try to schedule, say, a shorter meeting, see if it could find a shorter period of time for you two to get together.
Sure. Go back once again. It always throws you back to the menu so that you do your best not to get lost. So we'll schedule a meeting again, the PF7 key.
And the time is, you're in fact plugged into a mainframe here, aren't you?
Yeah, this particular test that we're running right now is tied to an information network that's running in Florida, but it is customized to our specific environment. It's an example, it's exactly what we're going to bring in-house. So let's go out here and let's schedule, what would you like, 15 minutes?
15-minute meeting.
All right, so we hit 15 minutes, and I always wonder when I do this if I'm going to spell my name wrong, and I just did. Okay, and let's get Bonnie in here. A.N.
I suppose if you did enter the wrong name, it would tell you so.
Well, it would either tell you so if it could match 5 or 6 characters up, it would go out and find the name anyway, without any, whoops. Well, let's hit transmit so that we get some action done here. Once again, it's going out there now and comparing our 2 schedules.
Okay, now looking for 2 15-minute blocks which are open on both your schedules now.
That's correct.
And what's it saying?
And it's coming back and saying that we have a 15-minute schedule here on Monday, and at between 8 and 8:15, and we have a whole hour open Monday afternoon. What we do at this stage, if we decided to pick the 8 o'clock meeting, is simply enter an X here, saying I've decided I want that time with her. It throws me into a note that says, where do you want the meeting? What's the purpose of the meeting? But it's a note that's going to be sent to her electronically, so when she's on her terminal, she'll know that that meeting is there and set up. And this is where I would enter that information.
Okay, Dan, is this typical of the kind of problem solving you might take in any other corporate client?
Oh, very much so. We, in fact, use a system like this internally within IBM. I got the note to come here today on a terminal just like that. And it's very much an iterative process of postulating a requirement for productivity, trying a solution, seeing if it works, and if so, expanding and replicating it throughout an organization.
First question that comes to mind when you see it, I mean, it's very impressive what it does. It's got to cost a lot of money to put a system like this in. Is it really worth saving the trouble of making the phone call to Bonnie and saying, when are you free on Monday?
Bill, maybe you could speak to that better than I.
I always get the hard ones. I think when you get into the office environment, you're not really talking automation in the traditional sense, where you get out there and you say, if I could only do that 5% faster or type 10 more pages. Automation's a bad term for the office, because if increased productivity equals the fact that what you do is type 10 more letters, spend 15 more minutes in a telephone call or something like that, you wake up with a view that I know a 4-year-old who was in a truly automated office and asked, what do you do? What does your father do? He said, well, he types and he looks in files and he does some things on the terminal. Well, sure, I do those things, but that's not really my job. So productivity means making your job easier to do business work, not office work.
Gentlemen, we're out of time. Thanks very much for being here, and thank you for joining us on this edition of the Computer Chronicles.
Microfocus, creators of visual programming tools for software development, is pleased to provide major funding for the Computer Chronicles, the story of this continuing evolution.
Random Access is made possible by a grant from Popular Computing, a McGraw-Hill magazine. In the Random Access file this week, Macintosh. What else can one say? If people weren't talking about the Mac itself, they were talking about the Mac commercial. In any event, the long-awaited Macintosh is now on the market amidst an incredible amount of hoopla. Early reports from dealers indicate what is described as tremendous consumer response. Early readings from dealers also indicate some concern over Apple's plan to sell Macs to universities at nearly 60% off. The dealers fear an active cut-price secondary market, with students buying Macs for $1,000 and selling them at a profit and still undercutting dealers by about half. Apple Chairman Steve Jobs talked about the new Mac during its unveiling earlier this week.
And what's so exciting about Macintosh is, while Lisa pioneered this amazing technology, this amazing software technology that makes this possible, with Macintosh we've been able to take that software technology and pull it down into a price range that's going to be affordable not just to the corporation, as Lisa is, but to the individual.
The Mac is basically a mini Lisa with a 32-bit microprocessor, one built-in 3.5-inch microfloppy, a mouse, and a 9-inch black and white monitor. The retail price is $2,500, and most analysts are saying that the success of the Macintosh is critical to Apple's future. Most reviewers have given the Mac excellent marks. However, some say that the lack of color on the Mac may limit its appeal. Meanwhile, the Macintosh got a nice early boost when the accounting firm of Pete Marwick announced that it will buy 2,500 Macs to be carried around by its auditors for use in on-site audits. The move makes Pete Marwick the first major accounting firm to send its auditors out into the field with computers. The importance of Macintosh to Apple's future was emphasized this week as first quarter earnings reports started surfacing. Apple's net profit fell 75%. The reasons cited were slow Lisa sales, price cuts on the IIe, and heavy R&D costs related to the Macintosh. Digital Equipment reversed its drop and showed a 40% increase in earnings, by the way. and IBM reported earnings up nearly 25% during the last quarter. And a market research report released this week shows that IBM and IBM clones now have about 60% of the Office PC market. The report projected that IBM machines would have more than 70% of the market by 1989. Well, this was the week of the Macintosh. IBM reported the start of volume shipments of the PC Junior this week. However, there were questions as to what volume really meant, as IBM warned that supplies would be limited. There were rumors that IBM was having problems due to parts shortages, but IBM said absolutely not. Last week, IBM announced the availability of a Unix system for the IBM PC. Now, AT&T and Digital Research have announced a deal to jointly develop and distribute software based on AT&T's Unix operating system. Digital's president and CEO, by the way, is Gary Kildall, host of the Computer Chronicles. While Apple this week was singing the virtues of its new 32-bit Macintosh, giant Hewlett-Packard announced that it was dropping plans to market a 32-bit computer. HP said instead it will concentrate on a new breakthrough product for release in 1985. Gene Amdahl's Trilogy computer ran into problems this week as Trilogy announced a delay in shipments of its new supercomputer. There were reportedly problems with the first prototype chips. Trilogy is developing 2.5-inch square wafer chips that will replace as many as 100 conventional chips. Apparently, the prototype chip had problems with its metal coating, leading to shorting and overheating. Fairchild of Mountain View got slapped on the wrist this week as the Pentagon took Fairchild off its list of approved suppliers. The Defense Department said Fairchild had failed to comply with government-specified quality control standards. In the world of software, MicroPro of San Rafael announced this week that it will go public with an offering of 2.5 million shares in March. MicroPro is best known for WordStar. And a new report by a software publishers group says that software piracy in the United States is now costing the software industry $20 billion a year. Some estimates say that nearly 80% of the software in use is pirated. Finally, there was almost more interest this week in Apple's Macintosh commercial than there was in the computer itself. The $500,000 TV spot ran during last weekend's Super Bowl and caused quite a sensation. Some thinking it was absurd, some thinking it was fantastic. The popular analysis of the spot was that Apple was picturing IBM as Big Brother with Macintosh as the hero of the people. Well, we'll see. That's it for this week's Random Access. I'm Stewart Cheifet.
Random Access is made possible by a grant from Popular Computing, a McGraw-Hill magazine.